A lot of times when we talk about mussels, people automatically think about the invasive zebra mussels, which is a very destructive creature. In comparison, our native freshwater mussels are a critical part of a healthy, balanced ecosystem. They have 2 shells and 1 foot and appear to be a very simple animal, but they're really quite beautiful, quite complex.
We did collect some mucket mussels from the St. Croix a few weeks ago.
Currently, we have 51 native mussel species in Minnesota, and more than half of them are imperiled in some capacity. Here at camp, with support from the Environment and Natural Resources Trust Fund, we're working with 5 or 6 mussels that are threatened or endangered. Mussels' main function is to filter the water. They are removing particles, pollution, heavy metals, and toxic things. Without the filtration power of mussels, our rivers would be a lot more degraded. The community within the river is relying on mussels to kickstart the food chain. Whatever the mussels don't eat is expelled out, and that becomes food for aquatic insects and snails. That's drawing in minnows and smaller fish that attract the larger fish.
We're a fairly unique group within the DNR. Everything with mussels is happening here. Starting in the early 1990s, Mike Davis and others surveyed across the state to determine the status of our freshwater mussels. Unfortunately, that led us to realize that many of our mussels were not doing well. They may have been cut off from their host fish because of dams, so they can't complete their life cycle. In other cases, from pollution, some of our mussel populations have just been completely extirpated.
Since the 1970s, the Clean Water Act has helped mitigate some of those pollution issues, but mussel population decline started over 100 years ago. Mussel shells were historically used to make buttons. They would harvest them by the millions out of the Mississippi River. And now we have invasive zebra mussels competing for food and for space. They can actually attach to the shells of our native mussels and suffocate them.
What kind is that one again?
That is one of the pocketbooks. We've been propagating freshwater mussels for many years, but since 2016, through the Trust Fund, we've been able to greatly increase our efforts.
The most fascinating thing about freshwater mussels is that they have a unique life cycle, which requires them to ride on the gills of host fish.
After fertilized eggs in the female mature into Glochidia, the larval mussels, the female uses a lure to attract the specific host fish. And so when the fish tries to attack the lure, the Glochidia attach to the gills of the fish. After a couple weeks, the Glochidia fall off the fish, wherever the fish happens to be, and then they grow into an adult mussel.
The most challenging aspect of working with mussels is figuring out the host fish. Each mussel species requires a specific fish species for a host, and you only get 1 chance per year to work with each mussel species. The challenge is timing of collection and keeping everything alive.
And then you have to figure out how to raise the mussels. They have different sediment needs, water quality needs, holding systems. Through trial and error, you figure out what works best.
After about a year in our lab, the mussels go out to a secondary water source, like a lake or a hatchery pond. They spend 1 to 2 years in those natural systems. By the time they reach about 1 inch long, they're ready to become a wild mussel again. After mussels are released, we go back for 3 or 4 years to try to recapture those mussels, to look at how well they're surviving. Currently, we are working in 3 watersheds in the southeast part of the state: the Cedar Watershed, the Cannon Watershed, and the Mississippi River Watershed.
A lot of our projects are in collaboration with many partners, federal, state, tribal, the Minnesota Zoo, and a newer partner is the Minneapolis Park Board.
With trust fund dollars, we're building on the knowledge that the DNR has gained through funding for decades to create customized habitat and reintroduce mussels at several islands upstream of downtown Minneapolis. The upper Mississippi River has been industrial. It's been dredged, it's been used for shipping fertilizer. It was not a good environment. So we created a vision to restore some of these shorelines and make that the kind of place where people in North and Northeast Minneapolis can have the same kinds of outdoor experiences that other Minnesotans do.
It takes many years to see the final results of our efforts. Depending on the species, it could take 3 to 5 years.
The goal is to get these species that we're working with to become self-sustaining populations. We want them to produce offspring that can start thriving on their own. And we're very close to winning the battle with certain species in certain areas in the state.
Through the support from the Trust Fund, we've been able to provide a service to the citizens by reintroducing mussels, which are in turn providing a service to everyone who enjoys our lakes and rivers.